Hey friends, it's Wendy. I wanted to pop on here really quick because I feel like I have a word of encouragement for someone today. Now, if you are new to my channel, welcome. I'm so glad that you are here. If you're not new, you will know that I have been doing these little short snippet videos that you seem to really enjoy. And so I have one for you today, and I want to show you something in the book of Romans. So if you have your Bible, I would love for you to go get it. Romans chapter 15 is where we're going to be. This is a letter that Paul is writing, and he is talking to the church in this particular letter. So he is speaking to believers. He is talking to believers within the church. Now, if it's anything like our modern day 21st century church, we can guess that there were some problems happening in the church. There was probably a little bit of turmoil going on. There was a lot of probably jealousy going on. There was maybe bickering and fighting and, just natural, everyday, ordinary things that were happening in this church at this time. And Paul was speaking to this group of believers, and he says this really interesting thing. Now, how I ended up here is I landed in here almost by accident by going through kind of like a rabbit trail of verses. And I landed on this verse that really, when you read it at first, doesn't seem like it's going to mean a whole lot. It doesn't look like it's a very significant verse. But I want to show you what I feel is the great significance in it. So again, we're in Romans 15. We are going to be in verse 14, just in one little verse, verse 14. And again, Paul is speaking to believers. He's speaking to people within the church. And he says this, he's almost to the end of his letter, and he says, I am fully convinced, my dear brothers and sisters, that you are full of goodness. He says, you know these things so well, you can teach each other all about them. I love this so much because he is speaking to sin-filled people. Yes, they were believers, but as you know, all of us are people that are filled with sin. And yet he speaks to them and he calls out their goodness. He says, I am fully convinced, dear brothers and sisters, that you are full of goodness. You are full of goodness. In fact, if I was mentoring you today and we were together and we were just sharing a cup of coffee, you and I just sharing a cup of coffee today, I would say to you, you are full of goodness. You are full of goodness, and you know these things. You know these things so well that you can teach others. I want to be someone who calls out the good in other people. Don't you want to be that kind of person? Today I was in a restaurant with my husband. It was a fast food restaurant where you go up and you order your food and then you sit down and then they call your number or they bring it to your table to give you your food. And it was kind of empty. There was only a couple other people in the restaurant besides us. We went through, it's a Saturday, so we went like midway through the day. And it just wasn't very busy. And this woman walked in, and the person that was kind of running the front counter said, hey, how are you today? Welcome to, and then she said the restaurant's name. And the person that walked in was not having it. She was not very kind in response. She was kind of grumpy, kind of, grouchy. And I thought to myself, and I actually said it to my husband, I said, we oftentimes look at these employees in these restaurants. We look at them and we think, well, why are they in such a grumpy mood? We go through fast food chains and they might have negative attitudes, or they might be just grumpy, or they might be, not very kind to us at the window when they take our money or whatever. But I said, I think they deal with a lot. When you are working with the public, you deal with a lot of different personalities, a lot of different negative personalities, a lot of just rudeness, right? And it really made me think of how are we as believers being kind and being good and being loving and showing Jesus when we are out and about in our everyday life. And I love this so much because Paul is, one of the greatest apostles of our day. And Paul gives us this wonderful illustration of how we are to live our lives. And that is by calling out what we want to see in other people, calling out the goodness in other people. In fact, I want to share with you what I wrote down in my journal concerning this particular verse. Again, he says, I am fully convinced Like he's fully convinced. He says, my dear brothers and sisters, that you are full of goodness. And then I wrote this. I said, yes, speak life. We may be the only Jesus that people see today. Speak life to those that you want to see good in, even if it is only embryonic, even if it's only still yet unformed. It's in this unformed state. See what you see him seeing in other people. See what you want to see in them. Call out the good in them. Call out the joy that you have when you're in their presence. Call out what you see Jesus seeing in them. Does that make sense? And so I think that this is so good that we can be carriers of grace, carriers of joy, carriers of love and kindness and mercy. Speak about them what you are choosing to see in them. And that's exactly what Paul did. Paul said, I am convinced, like maybe I have to talk to myself about this, but I am convinced that I am seeing in you goodness. I am convinced. Yes, it might be small and seemingly insignificant right now. Yes, it might be just embryonic and unformed, but it's there. It's there. Your potential is there. And so I am calling out that seed within you. I am calling out that good that I see. We have got to be, you and I, atmospheres shifters, and call out better destinies in people. This can be a coworker that you see that is struggling. This can be a child that you have that you know has been struggling with their identity or struggling just feeling loved and feeling worthy and feeling accepted and valued, right? This can be your spouse. This can be a parent. This can be a friend. This can be anybody that you meet out and about. This can be somebody at a restaurant where you're like, you know what? I have come to the point in my life where when I see something, I say it. When I see good, I say good. So when I go to a restaurant, let's say, and the waitress comes and she's really pretty and she has her makeup done so well and her hair looks pretty and she's all whatever, I call that out. I say, you know what? You are so pretty. You know what? I love those glasses. You know what? I love the way that you do your hair. You know what? Your nails look pretty. I try to call that out because it is amazing what it does for other people. And what better way to represent the life of Jesus than to say those kinds of things in kindness and goodness and love? So can we be like Paul today when we talk to people, maybe people that we're mentoring, maybe people that we are leading, maybe people that we are just friends with, maybe people that we, love in our life? How can we begin to call out that goodness and say, I am convinced that you are full of goodness, that you are kind, that you are smart, that you are strong, that you are brave, that we can begin to see people like that and to call that goodness out in them. I hope that this has encouraged you today, friend. I know that it was when I saw this, when I saw it on review. I know that I was greatly inspired, and I know that I want to change so that I can be an atmosphere shifter. I can be one that enters into any environment and I can bring Jesus into that environment. I love you, friend. Have an awesome day with Jesus. Bye-bye.